All right, guys, welcome back. Did you love hearing from Lori? Yes. We're so excited to hear the benefits, Lori, of your career and your great waterfront. How many of you guys have actually been to the Baltimore waterfront lately? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so just one of us. So it's everything she said and more. All right. Well, so today is about a world of waterfront. So we've got to do a lot more traveling in order to claim that lofty title. So let's go all the way to Paris, France, who just hosted the Olympics and is now handing off the baton to LA. And so our good friend Suzanne there was involved in the Olympics and work along the waterfront. So it combines two really pertinent pieces of information for Long Beach here. So I'm going to turn it over to her and she's going to present her work. Suzanne, if you can hear me and you're ready, go ahead. You got the stage.
Can hear you. I'm ready. Apparently my sound works, so that's great. It's 8 p.m. here, so I hope the lighting isn't too terrible, but maybe it's a bit better to present at 8 p.m. than at 7 a.m. like it's the case for Auckland. So anyhow, well, thank you for having me. Thank you to Studio 111. Thank you to PlacemakingUS. Um, so I'll start my presentation with an explanation about the organization I work for and give you a bit of context about how public policy works in France. So the program that we organized for the Olympic Games was called Experience the Games in French, Allez vivre les Jeux. And the goal of it was to activate waterfronts and downtowns, but I'm going to focus today more on the waterfront activation. So my name is Suzanne Pergal. I am Cities and Tourism Activation Project Officer at the Greater Paris Metropolis. So I can see in the conference room that you can see my next slide. So that confirms my question. So the Greater Paris Metropolis is a public entity serving 7.2 million inhabitants and representing 130 cities. So it's Paris and the 129 cities around Paris. And the idea is to consolidate certain services and provide those services to cities and to assist them in improving their public policy. So in France, people like to talk about a millefeuille and to describe the government. So you have different strata, different layers of government. And at the metropolitan level, we have certain responsibilities. For example, the region, their responsibility is transport, and these are our five main responsibilities. So the management of aquatic environments and flood protection, protection and improvement of environment, such as emissions, criteria or low emission zones, metropolitan area urban development and planning, housing policy, and economic, social, and cultural development and planning. And so that's where this project fits in terms of our responsibilities. So I think most of you have heard of the Seine River, but have you heard of the Marne? And have you heard of the Canal de l'Ourcq? The rivers in the metro area of Paris are not a monolith. There's actually, I would say, 10 different waterways if you count the canals and the rivers, and even the rivers that have been buried after industrialization and that we're starting to bring back to life in the metropolitan area. So it's a very complex ecosystem of waterways in the metropolitan area. They crisscross across approximately 78 cities in the metropolitan area. And we work on activating and creating tourism poles on all of the waterways. But of course, the Seine River and the Marne River are the major rivers that we work on, and also the Canal de l'Ourcq, because it's a canal that goes through some very highly urbanized areas that are very close to the Paris city limits. So our goal is really to transform the metropolitan waterways into hubs of activity to provide an oasis and leisure areas for people living in the metropolitan area. These are all pictures that are from last summer, from all the events that the cities that are part of our organization organized. And the overall strategy is to extend the destination. So we have, of course, Paris, which is one of the most Every year it's one of the most or the most visited city in the world. Paris doesn't really have a problem attracting tourists, but our strategy is more to extend the destination and improve some of the tourist attractions for cities in the metropolis, and also to create more local tourism hubs. We're not really focused on first-time visitors. We're more focused on repeat visitors and visitors that want to expand their knowledge of the Paris area. We work with our environment program. As I said, we have the responsibility of ecosystem and flood management to improve the attractiveness of the waterways in the area. And of course, the main hurdle is respecting the ecosystems. The rivers are living rivers and working rivers, so we have to respect the logistical function of the rivers. And of course, we have to also be managing the flood risks, which is a very real risk for the Paris area. And our goal is really to balance the maintenance of the ecosystem and the activity of the rivers, all while creating areas where people can come and enjoy the natural spaces and the cooling effect of the waterways. So back to the Olympics. Paris 2024 was really unprecedented in terms of the activation of the public space. As you can see, this is the opening ceremony along the Seine River. Here we have a skateboarding event at the Place de la Concorde. And so Paris 2024, I was there during Paris 2024. I went to some of the events in the public space. It was really unprecedented for the way that the public space was used and valued. And so we tried to extend that energy and that strategy into all of the cities that we work with. So we launched the call for projects in 2023, and we allowed cities to propose a project. And I'll just explain the criteria in 1 second. So we worked on capitalizing on 2 programs that we have. So one of the programs is downtown revitalization, and the other program is Summer by the Water. I won't really talk about the downtown program. The Summer by the Water program, we have 2 major areas of activities. So we have an event called the Big Jump that we organize to encourage people to think about swimming in urban waterways. And then we also have Summer on the Waterfront, where we support cities that want to activate their waterfronts with sporting events, with leisure areas, etc. And so the Experience the Games program, we let the cities really have a lot of liberty in terms of what they wanted to organize, but we wanted to make sure that all of the activities that we were supporting were open to all, free of charge, that they provided ways for all generations and any type of person to convene in the public space. And of course, we require that the projects be organized in the city center and along waterways. One of our main objectives was also to create a more equal distribution of activities across the metropolitan area. In the metropolitan area, there's a large wealth disparity between different areas in the metropolis, and there's a fair amount of cities where most of the inhabitants, they don't really go out of town for vacation during the summer, which is a big thing in France. Usually the city is empty for all the month of August. So we wanted to make sure that people that aren't leaving on vacation, that they can have activities and that they have access to the Olympic events. So a lot of cities, they would organize these local sports hubs where they would screen events, and they would organize workshops to introduce families and children to Olympic sports. A sort of summary of some of the events that we saw organized. So we had sporting events, cultural activities, events with sister cities. We did have some active design and tactical urbanism, but it was really a high degree of diversity in terms of the types of projects, the ambition of the projects. Difficult to summarize it here, but that's kind of a snapshot. As an evaluation or in terms of results, we had more than 500 actions, and an action could mean one day, one event, or it could also mean 3 weeks of activity in 86 cities. So we had 86 cities. And then we had 116 cities in the metropolis participate in the decoration and bunting campaign that we organized. I have a few photos of some of the events, a carnival, a festival for school children. And in terms of impact, the average per 86 cities was 4 actions by city, with an average attendance of 20,000 people per city for their entire program. And so we made a first estimate. We're still waiting on some of the numbers from the cities, but we have a first estimate of 1.7 million people that were impacted by the program. As I said, we organized and we financed a bunting and decoration campaign with the look of the games. So we distributed and paid for 116 cities to have the look of the games. We even had a waterways kit. So we included parasols, deck chairs, and inflatable buoys. So that was, I think, a lot of fun for everyone. And some of the main takeaways that we saw were experimentations with pedestrianization of city centers and placemaking, also an increased attractiveness for public spaces, and quite simply, public spaces becoming places for people to gather. Because when you think of Paris, I'm sure you think of the Louvre and things like that, but the greater Paris area has some public spaces that really aren't very lively. They could actually be visually very attractive, but they're not necessarily very lively. And I think the games and also this program, it got people back into the public spaces and showed them that they were places that people would come and gather and enjoy themselves. Like I said, we had a lot of activities for cities where families don't really go on vacation. I'm going to share a few highlights that are really in line with waterfront activation. And this is the city of Neuilly-sur-Marne, which was not so far from the canoeing and kayaking events in the east part of the Paris metropolitan area. So they had a very ambitious strategy, even starting, I believe, in 2020. They redid an entire campground that actually is in a flood risk zone. And they were very inventive. They created a campground on tiny houses with little wheels under the foundation, so they can actually evacuate if they need to, because that's part of the building code. And they made this really lovely tiny house camping area in an area that was basically, it wasn't abandoned, but it wasn't in great condition. They also renovated their waterfront, and they put into place water quality experimentation, which actually in 2026 will result in them being able to make the Marne River swimmable. So that's a really concrete, positive result from the Olympic activity. Another example that we have is from the city of Épinay-sur-Seine, which is very close to where a lot of the track and field and the Olympic events were held. And they were able to organize for the first time an aquatic sports hub. So they organized that in the park on the riverfront over 3 weeks. And they organized kayaking, paddle boating, etc. And so they had about 13,000 participants over 3 weeks of activity, mainly from that city. So mainly young people and families that were from the city. And they also activated the space with cultural events. Here we have a concert that was organized right on the riverfront. And the last program highlight that I wanted to share with you is Vitriport. So Vitriport was a project that was organized by the city with local cultural organizations, so an event space and also a collective of sculptors that's called Monster. And they created their a sort of beach port atmosphere in this area that was more of a an industrial area that hadn't really been recognized as a leisure area. And they were able to bring in all this sort of tactical furniture. You see the bar that was a container. They built cranes that were also cranes to kind of give a nod to the industrial past, that lit up and played music from 5 different continents to represent the Olympic Games. And they also made their own games for, for anyone who wanted to play. And the idea of the games is that they would only work when multiple people played. So it really encouraged this idea of cooperation and not necessarily working on physical excellence or sport, etc. So this one I quite liked. All of the games they had play on words and puns. In French, water is eau, and so this is a limbo. So it's a limbo, but instead of a pole, it's water that you get splashed with. So a lot of great creativity in the different cities, wide variety of the projects that were proposed and supported. So this is my last slide because I think I've gone over time. So one of the direct results that will stay in the heritage phase is really this raising of awareness of the potential of the waterfront spaces in the Paris area. And some bathing sites will be opening this summer already in the metropolitan area. So this is a photo of Champigny-sur-Marne. So that was in the photo with the big chairs from 2023. And this is the area that will be opening this summer for swimming. I had to condense 86 cities and 9 million euros of grants in 7 minutes. There's really a lot more to say about the downtowns, about the waterfronts, about the individual projects of the cities. But if you have any questions, you can email me. Here's my email address. And there's a link to the website of the Greater Paris Metropolis if anyone's interested. So I imagine question time is later. So I'll just give the floor over to the next presenter.
Can I get a merci beaucoup for Suzanne?
Yeah, it's actually coming full circle. You can probably tell that I'm not French, but I was born in Los Angeles, so everything's coming full circle.
Thank you. I met Suzanne on a rainy day in Rotterdam, and I think it was all about this moment and bringing her full circle back to us for inform our Olympic approach. I loved hearing about how the projects for the Olympics were small and distributed, and how there was a call, an open call for projects. Because we often hear that when an Olympics comes to town, it leaves behind big, expensive, and abandoned infrastructure. But I think what we saw with the way Paris approached the Olympics is they left behind social infrastructure, and it was equitable because it was distributed and it was made by people. So it's going to have a long, long lead. We'll continue our journey around the earth all the way to Auckland, New Zealand to meet with Frith Walker. It's very early there, so we're very appreciative of her getting up to talk to us about the big transformation that they had on that little island down there in New Zealand. There she is. Okay, Frith, take it away.
Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi kia koutou. I'm so excited to be joining you here. As I said, my screen is just not wanting to. There we go. Fantastic. It is about 7 o'clock here, so the sun's just starting to come up. So I'm doing my very best to be awake for you this morning. But yeah, to mention just where we are, just to point out here we have New Zealand. The gap between us and Australia clearly shows that we're two different countries, just to confirm that for you all. And I'm sitting here in Auckland, up at the north of our North Island. I'm just like Suzanne trying to condense 15 years into 7 minutes, so I'll do my level best. But Eke Panuku is one of the city centre's council-controlled organisations. We were formed from two parts of the council super city that was made in 2010. So Waterfront Auckland, which was regenerating the waterfront, which I'm going to speak to in depth, and Auckland Council Property Limited, which looked after all of the Auckland Council non-service portfolio properties, all of the things that aren't train stations and parks. They brought us together in 2015 to make an agency that can do a bit of regeneration in a whole lot of Auckland. So we have this is a really interesting diagram, but it's not a bad way of explaining how we work. We have levers that we work to kind of explain how much of each entity we might put into the location. So in some places we're going full commercial, in other places we're doing a lot of placemaking, in some areas. So we are the lead agency looking to gather all of the council bits and pieces to work together collaboratively. So those are the big faders. If you're a sound engineer, you'll know what I mean by that. And then we have these cross-cutting themes that we bring into everything: sustainability, Māori outcomes. For those that don't know, Māori are our Indigenous people here in New Zealand, Aotearoa. And we're sort of divided into two halves. We have the part of us that regenerates and the part of us that looks after our property. And all of that works together in a matrix organisation to bring hopefully good change for lots of different bits of Auckland. So we're working in all of these different spaces. We call them our priority location areas. Each area's got a kind of a red line around a particular space, generally around a town centre that we're looking to regenerate. But we're going to talk about the waterfronts. So that top red dot there for you, waterfront, our city centre waterfront. You can also see that Auckland has 3 harbours, the Waitemata, which we'll talk about, the Manukau down the bottom, and the Kaipuna up the top there. So we're at, little tiny isthmus, down here punching as much above our weight as we can. But this is the waterfront area that we've been regenerating since 2010. Basically, everything you're looking at here is reclaimed land. You've got Westhaven Marina off to the left there, which we own and manage, the Wynyard Quarter in the centre there, and then off to the right, you're heading more towards the city centre into our wharf area. And it has, this is an industrial space that was built for things like ports and maritime and all the things that help the city grow. Another name for Auckland is Tamaki Makoto, meaning roughly place of 1,000 loves. So this is a really flourishing, incredibly rich waterfront area that has nurtured people for a long time. But we have done a lot to make land down here that has got very sick, that is quite contaminated, that's done a lot of work for human beings, but maybe we haven't cared for it so well. And so our role was to come into this space. So this is sort of in the centre of that Wynyard Quarter area I showed you before. We're looking west-east here. And, industrial, a lot of bulk storage terminals looking after the important petrols and canola oils and the other things that lubricate our city. A lot of industrial marine support in here. You've got the Team New Zealand sheds down there, right down the barrel. And so stage 1, this Jerico precinct, redevelopment that into more public space. So same shot there from the top of Silo 6. We started by adding public space, first and foremost, to make areas that would attract human beings. In the middle there, that little grey roof you can see, those are the North Wharf tenancies. We held on to those and turned them into food and beverage, knowing that nothing brings human beings together like our tummies. And then off to the left, you can see those storage tanks still there. They're now gone. That's the team base space. I think it's my next shot. But yeah, again, back to this idea that if we start with public space and things that bring humans together, then the development will follow. Then the private sector comes in and starts to bring in our residential. The wavy top building that you can see out the back there is the Viaduct Event Centre. So a key master planning move to put a major event space into the area to again attract people, and then investment will follow. I know that this slide has a lot of words on it, but it's a really important one, so forgive me. These are our waterfront goals, and the reason for sharing them with you is because it's the intersection of these 5 things that make our waterfront what it is. Thinking about how and why public would use it, thinking about the environment, how we're looking after that, making sure we're protecting those key industries like the marine sector. So we want a real, authentic working waterfront. We don't want something that's just showbiz. Connected, making sure, of course, people can get there, and then livable. How are people existing in this space to make it a really thriving place all day, all night, all year round? And then the Te Reo Māori that you can see there, we worked with Mana Whenua in the last few years to make sure that we were bringing in their aspirations, feels like the wrong word, but their hopes and dreams. So again, it's that partnership and supported by a treaty in this country that we're thinking about how that Indigenous knowledge can help inform our redevelopment so that we're getting it right from both sides of our brains. We have these 3 sort of fundamental principles, especially from the placemaking angle. We're trying to design spaces that naturally attract humans. There wasn't a lot of place for people to just do sort of unorganized recreational things. So we built a half court, which then became so popular that we had to build some full courts. But yeah, just reasons for people to be there again all day. We program, as was beautifully said by Suzanne, we think about programming those kind of consistent reasons that fit in with the change that we're bringing, that give people reasons to be there, again all year, and attracting the events and creative sectors to come and bring their offerings. And then activation. This photo looks cute, doesn't sound cute, but yes, little cute things in the corner that might make people stop and have a creative experience, through again to that hospitality and the Viaduct Event Centre, that kind of full range of reasons for people to come and visit and stay. And another really important strategy for us, and Suzanne, you mentioned it, is this idea of do, learn, do. So this is Waitemata Plaza, really important tiny space that wasn't working at all. We did 3 stages of trials to kind of test all of the things that the community was saying that they wanted. This was a temporary beach. The local boaties were really angry that we'd put in sand because it sort of ended up on their boats, and then they recognised that people were sunbathing and that made them happy. And also everyone realised that's just a great place to take your dog. So beach didn't work so well, so we took away the cheap temporary version and put in a beautiful permanent, loved by everybody because they'd been a part of that experimentation version, which is a cool story. And so I could just hammer you with photos now. There are so many. It's a long time working for this space. Lots of things that we've done, lots of incredible people coming down. When I tell people where I work, sorry, their first response is, I love that place. And that just fills my heart with joy because I love it too. And that's ultimately what we're trying to make. But I thought I'd try and sum it all up in one little space. So this is the Karanga Plaza tidal stairs back just after opening day. You can see now Viaduct Harbour in the background there with all our boaty boats. And this is a first design offer to the public of Auckland and wider that they can come and touch the water. So previously, industrial waterfront, you couldn't actually physically get to the water. So these steps offered people an opportunity to just connect with the water. More recently, our mayor asked that we build a swimming pool. So this is it just before the fences come down on opening day. That's the Park Hyatt in the background. So that's a development that came in a bit later. So we've got a slightly more formal area now where people can swim. And again, people are just coming and loving it and making it theirs. There you go. Sort of aerial shot there. So Park Hyatt off to the left, Karanga Plaza there is that kind of first greeting public space that people get, and the Viaduct Event Centre off to the right. And this beautiful pool that was made by repurposing pontoons. We managed to do it for a relatively small amount of money, and yeah, again, beloved. You can sort of see a bit of a blue fence there in the kind of centre slightly off to the left. That's a jump platform, and this is the story I wanted to tell you. When we first opened the waterfront, there's a thing in New Zealand which is known as a sweet manu, where you jump off something into water and have to make a really big splash. So if you look up the Manu World Championships, you will find the official version of that. But people swimming. This is an opportunity to show off. And what was happening was that young people were making their own informal jump platform by jumping off a bit of marine infrastructure, which wasn't super safe. So what we've been able to do with this pool is create a formal jump platform. So we have people swimming, enjoying the space, but we also have this opportunity for people to show off and, like I said, make a big splash, do a sweet manu. And so this is a really fundamental offer of whoever you are, you can come and do this. It is, if you're brave enough to get into your togs in public space in front of everybody. But this is my favourite thing about our waterfront is all these areas where people can come and make it their own. And I think that's what makes the space really thrive. You've got people loving it. You've got people coming down, bringing their families, spending money in the restaurants, coming to events, connecting with the water being the big one. This is the thing we've severed ourselves from our waterfronts, and water is very, very good for us on so many levels. So I wanted to share a quote about placemaking that really means a lot for me at the moment. But I think that's our job, especially if we're working anywhere near water, is how are we helping people remember that they're part of that place, that they're part of their local environment, that they need to care for that environment, that they can connect with other human beings and, generally be fantastic citizens as a result. So we've only done this work because of an incredible network of people in the city council, the private sector, public, creative sector. The city should be a collaboration, I think. And like I said, that love word, making a space that people love, ultimately, that's why I'm in this business. And I think that's why this waterfront has worked to date, because it's genuinely somewhere that people love. That's my speech. Thank you so much. As Suzanne said, be here for questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Frith. I'm starting to get the placemaker feels. It's a real art to look at this stuff because you're looking very closely at something that's very subtle, but also very grand and very different depending on how it works and functions. And I think we're starting to see sort of that nuance of what different places feel like when they come alive, when they're for people. And I love that, sort of seeing the organizational backbones, that sort of invisible side of what makes these places possible. We saw with Lori that really property owners came together to form that entity in partnership with the city and cultivate. But here, the city itself created that forward entity, and look at how much power they had to implement big changes, but how smart they were to do it in that placemaker way of that do, learn, do cycle of making small bets, small investments that ended up leading to those bigger wins. So really, really great lessons, and great to have New Zealand in the house. There's also a New Zealand connection to here, because often when I'm overseas, it's hard to tell people these days you're from the US. Our brand is not the best these days. And so also, if you tell people you're from Los Angeles, that's a whole other brand you don't want. And so I'll often just tell people I'm from Disneyland because we're kind of near there. They know it's in this part of the world. And one time I told someone that and they said, ah, New Zealand. Very cool. So we were by there by misappropriation of a voice. So we're going to jump up. We're going to take it back locally. When I heard Philadelphia had a waterfront, I was shocked to know that it has more than one, double shocking. And we're really excited because on that waterfront is a place manager who has the big, bold type of ideas of a Daniel Burnham, but is also just really, really great at what he does at working with the jurisdictional Jenga that are our waterfront. So I'm going to pass it off to Nate Hommel with the incredible, some of his incredible work and what he's working on next.
Thanks, Ryan. And no pressure. I get to follow Paris and Auckland. So welcome to Philadelphia. We're 2:30 here in the afternoon, so a little bit easier for the rest of us. I'll just give you a little walkthrough of my organization and what we do, and then tell you about our big, huge idea, which is not too much further along than what Long Beach and their waterfront is, but we'll get into it. So I work for a place called University City District. We're a special services district. I want to walk you through like kind of how we got started and then what we're up to. So we've done a lot of different things with parklets, little seating platforms out in the street, kind of experimenting with, hey, how can we bend the rules a little bit so that we can make these things happen? And then we have another big experimental space called the Porch at 30th Street. So outside of our main train station, our main Amtrak train station, there was a parking lot, and we said, you could do something better than that. And so we put a bunch of tables, chairs, umbrellas, but I like to use this phrase non-permanent. So we can't drill anything into the ground because there's no ground under us. There's all the trains that go between New York and DC. And so everything is kind of sitting there gravity based. We've learned a lot about how to be light touches on infrastructure with that. We have a space called 40th Street Trolley Portal Gardens, where we have a bunch of streetcar trolleys that come out of a tunnel that fan out into West Philadelphia. And we made a restaurant there with two-story restaurant with plazas and lots of fun stuff out front, kind of celebrating the transit idea. The transit agency at first thought we were crazy. Who would care about trolleys? And we're like, people will. Don't worry about it. And so we also do a lot of other things where we just activate the community. We keep people clean and we keep this community clean. We keep people safe. We do movies and parks. We have a whole workforce division that helps people get out of cyclical poverty. And we even have our own shuttle service that takes people around. So if you look at that, that's kind of 6 buckets of work that we do. I like to say we play a business improvement district on TV, but we're actually a special services district. So that means all funding is voluntary, voluntary contributions. We can't put any liens on anybody's property. And so we're always looking at those spaces where there's nothing. And so we don't want to displace anyone or anything. We try and do things in the right of way. We try and do things where maybe people aren't thinking there could be something. And so we have this, as Ryan mentioned, there's 2 waterfronts in Philadelphia. There's one, the Delaware River, that separates us from New Jersey. That's the main commercial, huge freighters around there. And then we also, in the center of our city, have the Schuylkill River, which was named by the Dutch a very long time ago and translates directly to the Hidden River. So it's well below the infrastructure that's around it. Not many people have access to it. So all of West Philadelphia is shaped by this river, but very few people have ever touched it or gotten near it. And so this location is there's a highway that you can see on the bottom there, lovely tagged by local artists. There's a road up top that's part of the city's grid. That large building in the background there was the original post office, the main post office of Philadelphia. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And just off to the right of the screen is historic 30th Street Station, where we have our big space, the Porch at 30th Street. So we were looking at Philadelphia is getting hotter. Every single summer it's getting hotter, and we are the poorest big city in the US. And so one thing we can do is get people to the rivers, because as we know, the river is going to be a little bit cooler than the rest of the city, and most likely you're going to have breezes. So we wanted to create a public space that brought people to the Schuylkill River, basically for the first time. So on the center city side of Philadelphia, you have access to the Schuylkill, but on the West Philadelphia side, you don't. And so we came up with this idea called the West Philadelphia Waterfront. And so this is a 2-deck structure that is light on the infrastructure. So I kind of mentioned how we learned these things working around historic buildings. We float over the bulkhead, for example. The Army Corps of Engineers is always very concerned about damage and things degrading their bulkhead. And so we fly over that bulkhead. We're also encasing the highway that you saw there. And so previously, when you head from Center City to West Philadelphia, you see that ugly highway. Instead, you're going to see this beautiful park that kind of covers that up. But we're being realistic. We're not trying to say make that highway go away. That's worked in a couple of cities, but it wasn't going to work here in Philadelphia. And so instead, we said, let's work with it. Let's try and mitigate the sound noise and do other things, but get people access to this. And so this is a little bit of a breakdown here, but the top deck is a normal public space where anybody can come to it. It's flush with the grade at the street level there. And so anybody can go there, enjoy the views, enjoy the breezes, tables, chairs, planters, umbrellas, that kind of stuff, basic things. But then there's a lower deck, and so it's fully accessible. That would take anyone down to that lower deck, still well above the Schuylkill River. So the Schuylkill River is tidal, a 6-foot tide change with every tide. And even a lot of people in Philadelphia don't even know that. But we had a humongous tropical storm a couple of years ago that gave us what they called a 400-year storm, where our sunken highways flooded, and it was pretty spectacular to see. And we were worried that that's going to happen more. So this is a 500-year resilient design. So even if a 500-year storm happens, and we're kind of saying that is 2 back-to-back hurricanes, let's hope that doesn't happen. But if that were to happen, even at high tide, it wouldn't get over the lower deck. And so everything could stay functioning and has that resilience. So that lower deck has an aquatic marsh that'll collect the stormwater that hits our site and actually process it and drop it into the Schuylkill River cleaner than if it fell directly from the clouds. We have a right and proper beach that would get people that sense of feeling the sand in your beach or in your feet without having to go all the way to the Jersey Shore, which is about an hour and a half away here, and not something that everybody can get to. We also have something, we started out as a pool, but then there's been a lot of pushback from our potential funders about that. And so we said, if our goal is to cool down as many people as possible, let's do the best spray ground we've ever seen. And so we asked our design team, AECOM, to come up with a fantastic spray ground instead of a pool, and that's what you see kind of off to the right. And so I'll switch to an image here. This is existing. You're looking south on the Schuylkill River. Center City, Philadelphia is immediately to the background here of this photo, booming with residential. There's just new towers going up all the time. Historically, this is a super industrial area that nobody ever got near, but it's really happening on the other side. And so I'll give you our 100% corner of this. This is looking south again on the Schuylkill River from Market Street, kind of the heart of the city. Increasingly, Schuylkill River is the center of our city and no longer the edge that it once was. But this 2-deck structure, again, something that encouraged people to come to the waterfront, something that's fully accessible, open to all, not a private club, nothing that costs any money, just a place people can go and get near the water, enjoy those views, listen to those birds, all those good things, all those things we love about the water. The 2-deck structure, though, gives us a really unique opportunity. We've created this phrase internally called shade as equity. And so as our cities get hotter, people shouldn't have to be rich to get cool. People shouldn't have to pay money to cool down. And so just by naturally having a 2-deck structure, it's going to create its own shade. So it'll be someplace that in the smoking hot Philadelphia summers, you can go and cool down and relax. We're also having transparency from the top to the bottom. So people can see this, the hidden river can be revealed. You can see through the layers and connect down to the actual water level. On the opposite side, the Center City side, there is a lot of active recreation on the waterways, kayaking, paddleboarding, lots of great stuff. And so we want to create an interesting thing for people to come through and experience this. One of my favorite things, we were worried about this with Fish and Wildlife Service when they were looking for approvals. I like to say we were seeking maybes in our feasibility study on this, and we got a lot of maybes. We were really worried about the fish and water because we'd have to mitigate something. And they came back to us and said, actually, the water's getting hot for fish too, and so they need places that are shaded so that they can mate and they can have a little bit better lives. So you never know who needs the shade. Even fish need it. And so this is getting a lot of media attention. This is a pretty big project in Philadelphia. Not a lot of these things happen in our city historically, and so we're really excited to bring this big idea. And sure, the news media covers it, and that's kind of fun and important. But when you get into meme form, that's when you know you've made it. And so this is before Drake got himself in all that hot water. But this a very popular spot at the Jersey Shore is called Wildwood, and so obviously you have Drake saying like, "No, I don't want to go to Wildwood. Give me the waterfront." And so it's a fun thing, but it just kicks around, and the young people are liking this. This guy with the swimming's getting ready to hop on the subway to take to the beach is just fantastic. Again, just anything you can do to get people to love your idea when they start taking it on their own, it's fantastic. And so, again, this is the West Philadelphia waterfront, and we are hoping to raise enough funds to break ground on this, figuratively, because it's on thin air in 2027. And so, next time you're in Philadelphia, hopefully you can see this and come play in our beach.
Thanks so much, Nate. You know, as we look at all these examples, Paris, Auckland, Philadelphia, one through line here is that an extreme love of people. They respect what people want. They want to care for people. They want people to enjoy the public space. And then I just want to reflect that so many conversations I hear in Southern California are about getting people out of public space. You know, that's really, we don't have that same ethos here, that same love and proclivity and care for people and the dignity that public space, quality public space provides people to behave in ways that reinforce more public interaction is really something we have to jumpstart and catch up on. We have the best weather of any of these people, and we have the worst public space usage. And to prove that even more, we're going into the hinterlands of Canada, to where I would say this event really was born because we were so impressed when PlacemakingUS visited the Halifax waterfront and the care, concern, love of people, intelligent design, and investing going on there to create this holistic linear experience that's pointed by so many different moments and vignettes. So a true master of waterfront mastery is here to speak with you next. TJ from Halifax.
Hello, thank you everyone. Thanks for having me, Ryan. And so great to be amongst Suzanne, Nate, and Frith, and can't wait to hear what Dan has to say. So yeah, thank you again. I will try to share my screen. It worked when we were testing it out. Let's see. This window. All right, Ryan, feel free to interrupt if it's not working, but
You're good.
so this is my presentation. Love this town. Yeah, coming from Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. It's a little south of Halifax. It is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. What I love about Peggy's Cove is every day it's different. Every day down here, there's a different experience and all 4 seasons. And I think that translates to public space as well. One of my favorite places of all is my parents' kitchen, especially how cozy, colorful, and inviting it is. It's the perfect place for a lobster dinner, and you are all invited. Just let me know when you want to come. My work really changed when I went to Amsterdam, and the mayor's dying words to his final words to the city were to be sweet and be kind to each other, and be sweet and be kind to your city. That totally shifted pretty much everything I do from now on after hearing those words in that context. I started taking pictures of lovable things, not things that needed to change. So these are 2 of my friends that ended up getting engaged shortly after I took the picture. This is them in Budapest on an incredibly social bridge where people are free to have a beverage or walk with their couple, walk with their partner. And another moment was where a child was playing with an interactive fountain. and she was trying to catch the jets that were randomly coming up. And she had so much snot and drool coming out of her face. And she was actually levitating. That's how happy she was. So I think these are the kinds of public spaces we're after. I also started taking, photos of how lovable my own city was. And it has, it's become almost a side gig for me in doing photography because of that. Now, the point is the Halifax waterfront, though. I spent 10 years working with an incredible team on the Halifax waterfront. We were about, 30 people, plus or minus, managing 2 miles of waterfront in the heart of the downtown. And similar to Frith's story, it looked like that, and now it looks like this. Yeah, 2 miles of uninterrupted boardwalk connecting people to the water. These are some of the parking lots. We took 42 parking spaces and turned it into 24 small business opportunities and the most popular destination on the waterfront. It makes over $10 million in retail sales in 4 months in the summertime. It's also a place where an industry is still connecting with the public. And this is a science vessel. I'm not sure what the person on the left is doing, perhaps some kind of deal. But anyway, one of the magical things about the Halifax waterfront is it is not linear. It has lots of bends and twists and jogs. I joke that the Vancouver waterfront is about having a nice run or bike ride, whereas the Halifax waterfront is finding your next fish and chips or beer. And that idea of, slowing people down resonated with me on another trip in my travels. I found one of these paths and bridges across a pond, and I feel like the Halifax waterfront is more like this. It really makes you aware of your surroundings because of how small and cozy it is. Also be mindful of places to get away. A lot of people seek the water as a place to, escape the noise and activity of the city. So be careful about making it totally too active. One of my first projects when I joined was testing out public furniture. This, beautiful French furniture you can get. And we started deploying it, and literally as we were putting it out, people would start to sit in the furniture. And a lot of people said that this would get stolen or taken away or damaged. After 7 years, we still had over half the furniture that we had. So the life cycle cost was definitely worth it for the activation that it was providing. Hammocks. So this is I know Suzanne had a big chair moment. This is my big chair moment. We were designing hammocks for the waterfront, and I'm 6'6", so I required them to be big enough for me. And the result of that is that many people would like to get into them at one time. And now it's probably one of the most popular destinations on the waterfront. It's where people want to be all the time next to the water. Even when it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit out, people are there hanging out. Just some colorful furniture that we put in. This was one of the best initiatives we did. Hired a local community artist to do a painted chalk obstacle course. And everyone loves these. So bang for your buck for smiles. Put that on the top of the list. Before I started the job, we actually engaged kids at a museum around what their new play structure would be like. And they decided on a submarine, and we worked with local craftsmen and boat builders to create this. And it's been about this popular since it opened 10 or 12 years ago. And it's ended up on The Simpsons. Another lesson we had was we were putting in $200+ million development, and we needed to get around it. So we decided the only way we could afford it is if we bought docks for boats and lined them up and used those docks later on for berthing for boats. and we called it the Sea Bridge. And I'll just share, when there was a little bit of wave action, people loved to be on it. Some people didn't like it, but a lot of people loved to be on it while it was moving. So getting people close to the water is really, really key. People don't want to be 10 feet from the water. They want to be able to touch the water. And that site is now the location of these steps into the water, similar to Auckland. We piloted swimming with a student. It was a part of their one of their projects. And in the process of piloting swimming, we weren't expecting this. The usual busker came down to do some busking, and there was a dance event happening on. So some of the dancers came down and started dancing on the docks. And people started laying on the docks. So normally these would have been reserved for boats, but because we piloted swimming, it we got to experience this and the rationale for people to come to the water. That 42 parking spaces we converted for 23 retail opportunities. This is the site. We started with project for public spaces, place games, and an inclusive engagement approach, listening to people, how they wanted to experience the place, what they wanted to experience. We challenged them, what are the 10 things for each of your human senses that you'd like to experience here? And this is the public space today. And that's what the area looks like. So yeah, three restaurants and 20 small business opportunities. We piloted open fires. We have a week-long vending opportunity, which is incredibly popular. We've invited Youth Art Connection to come down and have a performance series once a week. And the site is flexible to have many different sizes of events, from, a single performer up to large acts. And we even purchased a small shipping container to be that sort of temporary stage that we can move around. And this stage was actually voted, believe it or not, the number 2 venue in the province for Black artists a few years later. So, and I just want to share that this place was 42 parking spots next to the water. And now it's a place where the Black Umfolosi from Namibia can come and play to locals and tourists alike on the Halifax waterfront. It's also been one of my prides is it's also a place that we've managed to work with and invite Indigenous community to be part of it and shape it. And there's 2 businesses that are open that are Indigenous led in this space now. So that's very exciting. So in closing, I just want to share that when I got back from that Amsterdam trip, I was invited to a community oven, and there was a bit of pizza left, and I started rolling out the dough, and I'm very terrible at making food. And so I couldn't make a circle. It started making a heart, and I was like, oh, well, lovable. So I put the heart-shaped pizza in the oven, and then I pulled it out and realized, that we're all working with the same ingredients. It's the same cheese, the same tomatoes, the same dough. It's just taking that moment to make it more lovable. And, let's try to create some more snot and drool and be sweet and kind to each other. Thank you.
Aw. Aw. Darn TJ for making it look so easy. But his Waterfront Development Corporation is actually so good at what they do that they got recast to do the development for the entire state of Nova Scotia. So that's what top of the top looks like. And so many lessons there, because it's not hard what he did, and he actually made his waterfront more accessible, created more small business opportunities, more opportunities for people of color to utilize the waterfront, and the waterfront is then more welcoming to everybody, and there's something there for everyone. So it's just the most perfect waterfront. But all of our waterfronts are totally unique also. I went to a waterfront and showed them how great I thought Halifax waterfront was, and I got chased out of the room because they had different priorities than having fun and children and activity. They were more about the historic aspects of their maritime culture. So it's very interesting to get to share what we're doing and what our different waterfronts look like so we can take and learn what we like and also be more reaffirmed in who we are. And so while we've seen a lot of accomplishments so far, our last speaker is joining us in more of a parallel boat to us where they're working on their waterfront. So they have some things that are going well, they have some big opportunities, and they're starting that visioning process. So just a little bit behind where Long Beach is today. So we're going to hear from Dan in Cleveland about their lakefront waterfront.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Is everybody seeing the screen okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much. I know we're coming up on time and coming to you from the beautiful North Coast. So lovely exotic lands of Cleveland, Ohio. And I'll take you through our journey on this North Coast Master Plan. My name's Dan Shinkle. I'm with the Cleveland City Planning Commission. I'm going to start us off really where we started, and that was on the whole history. So not just understanding the history of this place, but understanding the stories of everyone who's set foot here both in the past and today, and how they see this waterfront today. We went as far back to indigenous trails and found how many of those trails actually led to East Ninth Pier, which is Erie Street that takes you to Lake Erie right at our project. Underground railroad trails overlaid those as well, and a lot of freedom seekers left from the port right adjacent to our site, coming through Ohio. Uh, even Asian immigrants to Cleveland, unfortunately, the history of planning, right? We've forcibly displaced people multiple times for things like the Burnham plan for the malls, and moving the Asian community out of this place. And we're a majority minority city, so this is something that we have to think about through that lens and make sure that we can reclaim the waterfront for all of Clevelanders, particularly our non-white community. And as diverse as Cleveland is, we're much like every region where segregation is embedded. And those things follow red lines from the past as well. And there was a time where we had integrated beaches. And of course, there was a time when after that they segregated the beaches. And, you know, if we went to Normandy, why can't we go to Euclid Beach? And so through protest, those places were reintegrated. But rather than fully just integrate beaches again and spend time as a community, this city decided to turn it into a dumping ground and pollute it rather than integrate it. But not all histories are bad in these places. Um, Captain Frank's is just a known love of the city. Our older residents all have great stories about coming to Frank's. It was a place that you could buy a hot dog for $1 or a white tablecloth lobster dinner. And it was known in the Green Book Cleveland as a place that was safe for African Americans to come on the waterfront. And so I think what we're talking about is all the different separations, not just social, but also physical that we have to overcome. And so these physical ones play themselves out through bridges, through railroads, fences, gates, elevation change even. But it wasn't always that way. We used to have a really vibrant, beautiful, green and active lakefront, and we can get back there. And so really what our mayor has pushed us to do is push for healing, right? To turn this waterfront back into a place for all of us. And so we went all across the city doing engagement near and far. We did the kind of mile wide, inch deep, hitting schools and events all over the city. Um, any type of event that we could tag on to, any opportunity that we could, even at a grocery store, pop up. But then we also did the inch wide, mile deep with our salon series, where we really sat down with residents and let them say what they needed to say about their history with the waterfront. And so where did that take us? This is what it looks like today. It's about 22 acres of asphalt and parking lots. And it got us to this beautiful, vibrant green vision that will reconnect us to our lakefront. Quite a beautiful place. Knowing that we don't have a ton of time, I'm just going to jump into some of the things that we're going to test this year. So the food hall in particular. I think it was mentioned earlier from Auckland, like we all go where our stomachs like to go, or our thirst takes us. Playgrounds, sun decks, porches, and even some winter programming that we're looking forward to this season. So last year, we started this out, and it's really a 3 to 5 year process just to break ground at this point. We've gotten a lot of funding, over $130 million worth of funding awarded just last year. But we have a lot of work to do to really transform this space, and it's quite a hallowed ground. So how do we start with a parking lot today? Well, we just started to put out games and fun things and invited the community down for a drive-in movie night. And it was quite wonderful to spend a double feature together down on the lake. People really enjoyed their time down there. And of course, we had popcorn and some local art opportunities there for kids to do their own screen printing. This was Halloween season, so both features were based on Halloween movies. And then this year, we're really going to invest some money and start tearing up some asphalt. Um, Knowing that it's our industrial heritage, we've got a lot of shipping containers and Quonset huts shown here, but really reimagining this space for the first time, really reclaiming it for our city this summer. So this is some of the ideation. Permits are coming in the next couple weeks. We're looking to break ground here late April, early May. And so really, what are we doing? We're going to have a whole bunch of programs on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis of various scales. Everything from community build days to help us get off the ground to soccer leagues, sports leagues, basketball leagues, open mic nights, rollerblading, just fun times on weekends. Sunsets are fantastic here, so having programming for that. Continuing the artwork and making that community led. Wellness, water and nature, just because of where we are. We're actually next to the Science Center as well, so they're going to help us out with that. 4th of July happens here every year, but it's never had amenities like what we're going to install this year. So really exciting time. And, the whole point is to get us reconnected to our lakefront and for all of us to be able to come down and watch a beautiful sunset like this. Thank you, guys.
Woo. Thanks, Dan, so much. It looks like it's going to be great. All right, everybody. I would love to hear from you guys what you loved from what you heard today. So I'm just going to go through the room and you can tell me something that you heard that you absolutely loved.
Well, I love the fact that having been to Paris for a study abroad, I love the fact that now you're utilizing the spaces a lot more, because when we were there in 2016, it was very much don't go near the water, stay off the Seine, go around the Seine. So I really like that you're making it something new now.
All right, Suzanne, you got a compliment there on their use of the water. It's amazing that water is a new thing. We've been chased away from the water because of industrial uses, because of bad built environments, and now it's a return to the water. So truly, what's happening right now.
I really love how we're using like restaurants and like foods to bring people together into these spaces.
Yummy food.
I absolutely love the common string of inclusivity amongst all of the panelists and the intent to preserve and enhance that. I like the diversity of scale in the panel and the presentations of each of the cities. It's great.
Wow, using that special draw to the water, but then also your powers to bring everyone together and make it accessible to all. Good work, guys.
I would say in Halifax, the examples that TJ showed of just the quick and easy, like the leapfrog or activation of those open spaces. I see that in a lot in almost all of the sharing that was done, but just thinking about ways that we could immediately and quickly invite people to the places that we want to change.
Yes.
Yeah, I also really appreciate the do, learn, do mentality for a lot of these things, and then also leaving behind a lot of the social infrastructure out of big projects that are coming through.
Hi, everyone. I really love the focus on sustainability on everyone's approach, and I also really love TJ's approach with love.
Aw.
Like how Dan was talking about, just like past planning practices, like kind of working from that and building off that, and kind of like dismantling that historical segregation and redlining, kind of making something new, especially like having something more people focused and talking about like indigenous spaces.
The memory and the layers are so important in our waterfront.
Well, it was very great listening to all this positivity and moving forward. And being a fifth generation California, my parents used to bring me down to Long Beach. And I can remember it was not always a wonderful place to be. And just looking outside our window, seeing how Long Beach has been reborn, I really think that this is a team and a great area that you can now take the waterfront and turn it into something special, because it sure made your downtown great.
Hey, thanks for the second chance. Council member.
I'm much appreciative of the fact that all of the concepts created the idea that it's for not only visitors to come and see and play and shop, but it's for the residents of the greater city surrounding it to come also and return to the area. And fortunately, they also don't have the Coastal Commission to help them shape their decisions.
Boo, hiss. Yes, we've often heard the waterfront called the city's front door.
What struck me is that everybody emphasized the ability to get very up close and personal with the water, whether, including swimming in it. Important factor in all of them, I think.
Yeah, the tactilic nature.
I found maximizing the positive impact of the triple decker infrastructure in Philadelphia very inspiring, because it brings together civic, the community, and ecology in a very vertical link that can really easily bring people closer to concepts of ecology and nature, and that's wonderful. They don't have the chance to do that.
Truly a brilliant project, and highly recommend deep diving with Nate even more into it.
Yeah, what I really like about all those projects is those examples showed us waterfront development doesn't mean expensive infrastructure. It also we can also use like little tools to kind of activate spaces and just establish a relationship between the waterfront and residents and also tourists. So we have more than just expensive infrastructure for our waterfront developments.
Yeah, TJ, did you mean 10 million USD or Canadian?
Canadian. So what's that today?
Like 6
9.
Okay.
9.5.
Yes, the thing that stood out to me was the comment coming out of Ohio is the water is a place for healing, and going to the water to heal not only the damage we've done to the planet, but the damage we've done to each other. So that was really outstanding to me. Yeah.
That's a great point. Placemaking doesn't all have to be bright colors and hullabaloo. It can be solace and spirituality and other types of connection.
Appreciated the use sort of across the different spaces of temporary materials and movable furniture, places where you could lay down and jump in the water, and also how those might last. Hearing that half the furniture in Halifax lasted for 7 years is wonderful, and speaks maybe to some of the heritage that one might see in Paris and beyond.
Great point. Definitely Halifax has a material genius behind everything that they use, including the memories and feelings they evoke with different types of material, where you walk and how you're guided, as TJ showed us with that Japanese walkway, which is actually a method of view control. So this is such deep understanding on display there.
As a parent, I really appreciated the emphasis on spaces for play and creativity and experience. As a transportation planner, I really appreciated the creativity in using interventions to overcome some of the barriers that transportation, roads, rail can have. And so kind of keep them functional while creating that space for people.
Thank you. Okay, I got lost. Oh, there we are. Here we go.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the fact that we don't have to wait for these large infrastructure projects to get placed, but we can start activating the space now with little gestures coming up from Cleveland.
Just the passion and connection to the community of all the panelists.
I would like to say I really appreciate the policy making. However, I also really like the inclusion of the arts. It's the arts and culture that keep people there. So thank you for including that.
I mean, I think it was a great assembled group that shows that they can be citywide as in Paris or in a very small project. In other words, there's solutions for all the waterfronts. It's not a cookie cutter and work with what you have. And I think that was really the most exciting. Like there's hope for everyone.
I really appreciated seeing the wide variety of programming to activate the waterfront across the board. Personally, though, living a block away from the harbor here, I really love the ones that bring you down into the water. Every day when I walk along the waterfront there, we're floating above, in 6 feet, sometimes rising. But I really want to get down in there. I love those.
Are you speaking about the disconnect from like upper and lower in Long Beach? How the oh, you're a Pedro guy. Okay, whoa, buddy. I didn't give you all that airtime. Okay, yeah. Okay, no, that's a great point. And Halifax is very much like that, where it's a very it's like a mountain coming out of the ocean. So
I like the lovability aspect, and also just that start with like the family dinner that TJ had, but then at the same time, just this idea that making something for the community, like instead of for somebody else, and having that iterative design process that you're describing, that you can just make a hopscotch. You can start very small and just start to feel out how things can be. And I love that actually was it in Auckland? Where was it where they had an actual contest? I love the idea of contests where everybody can actually bring all of their special ideas to the city and it can be tried.
wonderful. Okay, over here.
Oh, I just appreciated the whole approach of each of the groups and how much they love their cities and respective districts, and even places that seem kind of forlorn and forgotten have great potential if you're creative about your approach.
I really loved how in the Paris example, they collected ideas from the places where the activations were going to happen and then supported the people in those places to make those happen. So it was really from the ground up. I love that.
That's what I was going to say, but in a lot poorer language. So, but the other thing that I liked is that all this investment was being put into waterways, but they were still going to keep the activities free for families and accessible.
And let's be real, guys, like this stuff's really hard to do in Long Beach. This is not the norm. You know, I work with the farmers market and we put out at the marina some blue beach chairs on a little patch of grass in the marina. And people loved them. They flocked to them, and I took pictures of them enjoying them. And you see people like meeting up with their friends or hanging out with their kids, or really magic moments being created at the shoreline. Well, a boat owner complained because somebody moved one of the chairs into a boat parking space. The city came out, said, "Hey, these chairs are not in the farmers market's permit. These people need to go. They need to be gone from this grass patch with their beach chairs, mind you." And so, you know, they were removed. And so the farmers market said, okay, next time we renew our permit, which is every 6 months or so, we'll write them into the permit. Well, then well-intended planning department effort comes through. We got to nativize this grass patch. We can't have this watered grass. So now it's a native plant garden. And so great, it accomplished the goals of our water goals and the plant goals, but we lost that potential of that place for people where they could have coexisted because it was unpermitted, and then ultimately because right hand and left hand aren't quite in touch with each other. So opportunities to do these things are falling through the cracks every day in Long Beach, and we have to collectively create institutional awareness, or maybe even a new organization that can help make sure that these things can make landfall. Whoa, that was a good pun. In the city, and we can continue moving forward. Okay.
Love how I guess inviting places could be created in all shapes, sizes, and budget. How it's all very inclusive, thoughtful of everybody, including the fish. So
thank you. And we need to give her a round of applause because she liked my worst joke. The keystroke. she died. She died. You should have seen her face, guys.
What really resonated with me was, TJ, your kind of mindset of being kind to our city. And I should say, I'm from San Francisco, and at a time where there's just so much media telling us that we're a shithole, there's just a celebration of community spirit that feels so important. And so I think just like anchoring in little moments of joy as an urban designer, I think is very important and keeps me going. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think just the diversity of scale and the layering and, like somebody I already pointed out, they're all unique environments, and you're approaching them and addressing them contextually, and I think that's a draw. Why do people want to go somewhere? Is it just like the other place they've already been, or is it something unique about it? And I really like the areas where you actually access the water, where you have like steps or ghats that go down to the water. And I didn't see it so much, but I think interaction with the water, meaning some types of fountains or interactive play, or somehow kind of getting you just that much closer to the water physically. People love that. It's like little kids, I'm just going to step in the water, Dad. And by the time, an hour's gone, they're up to their neck in their pajamas or whatever they are. But getting to the water, the whole point is getting to the water.
Get it to the water. Yeah.
I just enjoyed seeing just the different activities that were provided and opportunities for loved ones, families to get together and be around nature. A lot of us are stuck inside of a building, and it's just so nice to beautify, the environments that we have. And so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the fact that climate change was part of some of these infrastructures and planning for that.
We better. Uh-oh.
I think the framing of, I guess, making the economic case to put ecology and inclusion and stakeholder participation first and foremost, really these human-centered ideas actually attracts big investment. And so to see the human-centered design say, hey, humans are here. And then developers say, oh, we want to go where the humans are. Like, it's a simple idea. And it's the economic case for these things that really are aligned with the community and even treating the ecology as a stakeholder.
The whale retweeted.
Yeah, I could I really love the simplicity of everything. And what you're really trying to foster is that interaction with everybody. And that's what I think we're all really looking for. And having this area where everyone can come together and really interact. I really love that. And I love that you guys are all coming from that user-centered, that community-centered design.
Beautiful.
Just found it interesting. I think I forgot which project it was. They got hit with like a 400-year storm. So for me, it was just interesting to hear that they considered
a much worse event. I don't know what the probability of return for any given year the 500-year storm occurs, but I think it's just good foresight to consider that in the design.
I thought it was really interesting that all of these projects to achieve sort of transformative change really required a very layered approach. And I thought Frith had a great slide that was, it was placed by design, placed by programming, and placed by activation. And each of those had a much deeper path into it, but they were all required to get any of these projects really off the ground and with community buy-in.
Ooh, I like that. In placemaking, we say hardware, software, orgware.
I really love the concepts of shade equity for everyone, including the fish, using trees as infrastructure or infrastructure to provide cooling and adaptive opportunities for us as a community is really beautiful.
And what did you hate?
Nothing.
I know you seem very positive. I like you. All right, Dave Zanata.
So I want to focus on your positivity, your passion, and your tenacity. It shows that we can look at the negative sides. You look at the positive sides, we can achieve this, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years later. And you guys have done it. So congratulations.
And as like a former port commissioner, how do you think like entities are here to support this type of thing?
Well, again, we talked about it earlier, is that the city needs to partner, not lead a lot of this stuff. They need to partner with a community factor, and the city needs to oversee it and be a partner in that respect.
So wise. Years of experience. Listen to the man. Okay, Michael Bond.
I'm obsessed with traveling to cities. It's almost unhealthy. I just love going to different places. And I've been to all these cities except for Halifax, which I barely know where it is on the map. And a commitment to going there within the next 2 years. It was absolutely inspiring to see what's going on there.
Well, when you do, make sure you look up TJ because he's not lying about that lobster dinner at Peggy's Cove. And oh, well, then you don't get to go. But he's had Yongel have that lobster. He's had some of the great, folks working on this stuff. So who needs a Michael Bond to eat that hot ground butter?
Yeah. So like Michael said, so inspired to go visit these places again. And also so inspired to just have this time with these amazing placemakers who care a lot about place, but seem to care even more about the people that gather in place, which is really what we're here to do all together. And I think we owe you a round of applause because all these people that came today, you corralled them, you know them, you brought them here to our special little event. So we owe you a lot of a debt of gratitude for putting this together. You and Madeline, thank you so much for doing that. Really.
Woo! We're lucky to have some very, very cool friends.
Sure. I got something from every single presentation, took notes, want to follow up in websites and maybe talk to some of the folks coming from Baltimore. But the best to me, the goal we all have is snot and drool. It's a little bit disgusting, but it's exhilarating an image. So let's go for snot and drool.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us from around the world. It's so important, as our governments are struggling to get along and communicate and work together, it's more and more important that people at our layer of making places and making our way in this world relate across national boundaries, to our lovely enemies in Canada, our enemies in New Zealand, our enemies in Pennsylvania. We really got to extend a hand. And so I really appreciate Studio 111 being a beacon in Long Beach for sharing this type of knowledge and information. It's not easy or obvious to go beyond your borders and ask for help or show what you're doing in the filing cabinet. And really, this partnership didn't even form here in Long Beach, but while we were in Mexico City together talking about Long Beach. As you do, you're out of Long Beach, You're always running into somebody with a JoJo's hat and then end up talking about the traffic on 7th. But, it's so important that we really open our eyes to the amazing asset we have. There's a reason Long Beach is the cheapest waterfront city in California. We're not hitting our mark. We're not hitting the high mark on what's possible here and what can be done. And that includes everything from cleaning it up to making it more accessible, to making it more fun and beautiful. And hey, what would Long Beach be without its waterfront? Lakewood? I don't think so. We have the people here, we have the love, we have the pride. Let's get them down to the waterfront and have some fun together. This whole city started on the waterfront with revelers having a great time. The city of Long Beach was actually a reaction to that, to try and create some laws and some rules to button down on that excitement. So it's time that we reopen the vice grip, we have some fun together, rebuilding our waterfront. There's a wonderful mural block from here from the 1930s. It's a WPA mural of our waterfront and what it looked like and felt like back then. Let's bring that back. It has everybody in it. They're doing all types of activities. They're having the best time. They're all together. And there's a whale out yonder in the distance. He seems to be waving or maybe typing something with his on a laptop. But I look forward to exploring our waterfront more today with you. I'm going to pass it over to Shruti, who's going to describe our methodology to get down actually on the water, enjoy drinks together, and more awesome conversation.
So thanks to the miracles of technology, we've recorded the whole thing. So we will make a link available. We can try to see if the presentations are available as well. But at a minimum, we will definitely have the recording of the entire event available to all the people, everyone here. Yeah. It falls to me to do the boring logistics, but I want to also say thank you to everybody who presented with us. Suzanne, Frith, Nate, you guys were inspirational. It was really quite amazing to see not just big vision, but also let's start somewhere and start doing things together. So thank you all for sharing that. I know you're all in different time zones and different stages of your day, but thank you for taking the time to be here.
Fabulous.